Well, welcome to Mind Body Relationship, where we talk about the mind, the body, and the relationship. And today we have a special guest, as well as Brianne.
Thank you. He is way more special.
Yeah.
This is Oscar.
Mm-hmm. And Oscar is
So he was originally a service dog for me, and now I use him in therapy.
Oh, interesting. Does Oscar have a title? Like an emotional support animal, or?
Well, he was a considered a service dog, like a therapy, but now I just call him a therapy dog.
Now you just call him a therapy dog.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, wow. So what do therapy dogs do? What do service dogs do?
Well, there's a difference between service dogs and therapy dogs. So service dogs are usually one-on-one with a particular person, and they're trained to their specific needs. So that can be anything from, people having seizures. Service dogs can be trained to sniff out seizures up to 30 minutes beforehand. But there's other kinds of things. They use it for kids with diabetes. I'm sure people have seen them, blind service dogs to help people with who are blind to get around. So there's lots of different uses for them. They're being used more and more with children with autism, people with psychiatric disorders and things like that to help them regain independence.
Very good, very good. And today we actually have another guest.
Yes.
Right? Oh, did you want to introduce yourself, or did you want your mom to introduce you?
This is my daughter Annika, and she's going to help us to show you what a therapy dog would do in session.
Ah, sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, how about if I move out of the way and we'll do that?
Okay. Therapy dogs are kind of trained to come into a therapy session and to help out with the kids. I typically use it with kids, but they can help out with anything with adults. I typically use Oscar with a lot of my trauma-based clients because the kids that are coming in are often very anxious, and having a dog here to talk to and to be kind of a buffer in the middle usually gets the kids engaged in therapy a lot easier. So an example would be if a child came in and they were anxious and I was trying to talk to them, I might actually have the kid go and play with Oscar. I might have the child come in and into the room, and here, Annika, and I would teach them some of the different commands. And that gives them a sense of power and control in their self. Because here she's teaching him how to give a fist bump. Do you want to teach him how to, down, there, and maybe stand? That's good. Maybe you can get him to walk or come. Here you go. He's like, I'll take it. And so that's something that we'll often do in the beginning of the session, because a lot of kids with trauma and attachment disorders have a lot of difficulty advocating for themselves or taking control of situations, because trauma is about taking power away. And so that helps them to kind of, regain their voice and learn to be assertive. And then we start to work on those same skills, but we work on them with perhaps friends or adults in their lives about setting boundaries and being assertive. So that's one way that I use them. Another way that I use them in session is that some kids will come in and they won't even talk to me. Look at him. He's like, Mom, I'll take one. They won't talk to me, but they'll talk to him. And often what I'll do is I'll sit back and I'll watch them. I'll start a conversation and I'll watch how they're just playing with him and seeing, if they're kind, if they're rough, if they're scared. What I'll say to them is I'll use noticing language. Like, I noticed that with Oscar, right, that you're petting him really gently. That's really kind. Or I noticed that you're being a little bit rough with him. And he looks a little bit scared and he doesn't want to come, why do you think that is? And so that initiates a conversation around how our behavior affects other creatures and other human beings. And then I might move that along and say, well, are there other relationships where, maybe you act that way and people don't want to come close to you, right? Or are there other times where maybe you felt scared, just like Oscar feels scared? And what did that feel like for you? So it's certainly a conversation opener. Another thing that I would use them for is, Annika, do you want to go lay down on the pillow over there? Just put your head down. And so I would have them, in that type of a pose where they're kind of relaxing, and I would have them petting the Oscar or whatever. We have another therapy dog here as well. So they'll be petting them, and that's keeping them grounded in the moment and very present. And then we might go into some type of meditation, a relaxation exercise, or anything like that. And the key there is that, for people particularly with trauma, they have a lot of difficulty just being present in the moment and relaxing. So dogs really help them be present in the moment and petting them, because they have to pay attention to where the dog is. When I'm doing EMDR, I actually use the dog a lot. A lot of kids like the bilateral stimulation, so I might be tapping on their back or I might be tapping on their shoulders, but they're also petting the dog. And so they're touching a creature and I'm touching their back. And so there's that sense of connection there between the EMDR, staying present, and also processing what's happening. The kids really, really like him. And actually, this is the first thing they ask when they come in is, how come Oscar's not here if he's not there that day? Which makes me feel wonderful about myself. Yes. They're not really worried about me. They're worried about where he is. Yeah, I think that therapy dogs, animals in general, I think animals in general just have a natural healing quality about them. And I think that if we can use them a little bit more in especially work with kids or people who've had trauma, I think there's, so many benefits to it, because it can be really difficult to open up or to feel safe and calm with people you don't know in a room. And I think that an animal just kind of neutralizes that in a way, and it creates this, it creates a safety in the room. And I just think that animals are just beautiful. And even for kids, I've had kids that are nervous around dogs. And that's been great, because then they start to learn how to deal with that sensation of anxiety in their bodies, right? And we work through that, and that's an example of them learning how to overcome their fears and in a safe and therapeutic environment. So that's Oscar. I use them predominantly with children, and I see the benefits of that, but I do use them with adult work as well. When we're processing, even him just laying there against their leg, right, is often just very soothing for adults. And I was just saying to you that he's trained to notice when somebody's dissociating. And I had a client the other day that was dissociating, and he picked up on it before even myself or the client picked up that they were starting to dissociate. And he started pawing at his arm. So that was really fascinating to me, that he was able to do that. And then he stayed very present, and he made sure that client was like making eye contact with him, and that he was very present in the moment so that he couldn't continue down that path. Mm-hmm. So it can be very helpful for adults as well.
Mm-hmm. Very good, yeah. And for people who are perhaps nervous about having an animal in therapy with them, what do you think about that?
I would certainly talk to your therapist, right, about that, and let them know ahead of time. And if it's something that, you have a phobia about, or that you're severely anxious and it's something you want to work through, then that's a great opportunity to come up with a plan about how to do that. And in terms of the animals that are coming into therapy, they're well trained. They're trained animals, and they would never, have an animal in here that would bite you or hurt you or harm you in any way.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And tell us a bit about the training.
So for Oscar, he had to go through a year and a half, actually, a very intensive training for being a service dog. And then when we moved him to therapy training, that was actually a little bit of a difficult transition because he had always been so focused on me, and we had to figure out a way to get him to focus on other people. And because he would come in a room and he was trained to sit beside me and to be with me all the time, and then, you know, I'd be like, no, pay attention to somebody else, and he didn't know how to do that. And so you'll notice he never wears a vest, and the reason for that is because when he was a service dog, he had to wear a vest, and that's how he knew he was working. So the minute I put a vest on him, he will go back to being my service dog. So that's why he doesn't wear a vest. It did take up quite a bit of training, and even at home, like when Annika tries to take him for a walk, sometimes if I'm at home, he doesn't want to leave. He's very attached to me, but he's gotten a lot better about, especially with my clients. Like, he's right up there with them, like on the couch, or as soon as they walk in. I have one little boy client who hides treats for him in the Lego. He builds Lego forts. And so he's always really excited to see that particular client. He knows right away, you know. So even when he would hear that little boy's voice over my computer when I was doing online training or online sessions, he would perk right up. Because he knew. He was like waiting for the treat, but there was no treat. So, yeah.
Very confusing for a dog.
Very confusing for him. So I had to start having treats available when I would be doing sessions with that particular client. So, yeah, they form, he's been able to form an attachment. But the training actually is, for therapy dogs, is you have to have level 3 basic training, and then you have to go further to have specific therapy dog training.
Wow.
Yeah.
It sounds like it takes a fair period of time.
It does. It's usually 2 to 3 years.
Wow. That's a long period of time.
Yes.
And quite costly, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's not cheap. But it's worth every penny. It really is. It's worth everything. But he's definitely, I would do it again. I would do it again, and just to see the rewards. I watch my daughter Annika with her dog Gigi, and the amount that dog has helped you, hey Annika, just absolutely incredible. So that's been an amazing journey for us as well.
Sounds great. Yeah. Well, thank you, Brianne, for joining us today and talking to us about Oscar. And Oscar, did you want to look at the camera?
He's like, does the camera have treats? Annie, go stand over there and maybe he'll look at the camera.
There you go.
Maybe.
You want to look at the camera?
Treats.
It's all to do with treats.
Here we go.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Yes, and thank you, Annika, for joining us today. Yeah. Did you want to add anything?
How has having Gigi helped you?
I'd say I couldn't cope with her, and there's this cup, it's like, who saved who? And I'm like, definitely Gigi saved me. Definitely. Because I was very anxious at school and bullies, and I was dealing with bullies, and I would come home and pet her, and it would make me feel better. Also, when I'm about to cry, she'll come and sit on my lap, and then it'll just make me forget all about what I was going to cry about.
Oh, very good. Yeah.
She's helped me a lot. I feel like I couldn't cope without her.
Yeah.
And we've formed a very strong bond. Yes. If she's away from me, as well as Oscar is away from Mom, they will have a freak attack.
They do.
Oh.
Yes. She cries at the door.
All right. Well, that's good. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining me today. And thank you for joining us as well. And if you have any questions about therapy dogs or therapy, please don't hesitate to contact us, and we'll be more than happy to give you some further information. And if you like this video, give it a like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. All right, and bye for now.